In an era of social distancing, it's not always easy to maintain a social circle. Tonight, we examine the importance of socialization as we age. You'll meet a woman who is a wife, a mother, a teacher, an author, and a political activist. And we'll close the show with a song from Creative Aging's musicians. Funding for the Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. We humans are social creatures, but even in normal times, it's not easy to maintain a social circle, especially when you consider that 28% of people 65 and older live alone. Lack of socialization can lead to isolation and loneliness, which can spiral downwards into depression. Maintaining social contacts throughout our lives improves the quality of life and can even help keep our bodies and minds healthy. Let's examine the link between socialization and aging. Well, Pat, thank you very much for being on The Best Times to talk about socialization. Let's start with the simple question. Why is socialization important as we get older? Is it more important now than it was when we were teenagers or in our 20s or 30s?
Well, certainly socialization is extremely important. As humans, we are wired to be social creatures. Healthy relationships are important at any age, but particularly as we age and become seniors or part of the golden population. Because socialization becomes a little more difficult and a bit more of an effort at that age. Oftentimes we find ourselves living alone from widowhood or divorce or empty nest, or relocation to be near adult children where you have no other support system. So that alone time can really affect our ability to socialize. So it takes a very concerted effort to get out, get to know people, join groups, and be social.
Are there health benefits to socialization?
Yes, I was amazed in reading about this topic that one statistic said people who have an active, vital social life have a 50% reduction in early death. Another study also showed that 45% of the people over the age of 45 report themselves as being lonely. And that's an even bigger number than people who deal with diabetes and smoking. So loneliness is so pervasive, and that just emphasizes the need for socialization all the more.
You know, in talking about loneliness, it sort of gets into my next question, which if there are physical health benefits, are there also mental health benefits? Can socialization help us maintain cognitive function as we age?
Oh, definitely. Well, certainly the physical aspect, including exercise and cardio health, has a component that plays into the cognitive health of seniors. Being social as well as physically active can increase mental acuity, sharpen intellect, and in some cases possibly stave off or reduce the intensity of dementia.
Speaking of statistics, and you mentioned loneliness earlier, I have read that 28% of people age 65 and older live alone. Without some sort of social structure, what are the dangers for individuals like this? What can happen if you don't have that social structure?
Well, certainly loneliness becomes paramount and depression creeps in. And depression can become immobilizing. After a point, you no longer try to be social. You just exist in a lonely state. It's also a little dangerous too when an elderly person lives alone with a minimal support system and they have health issues. Who takes them to the hospital? Who drives them to the ER? Who makes sure they get their medication? That need for a support system becomes pretty critical if you are alone.
What about recent retirees? You know, many people, they'll spend their lives working 30 or 40 years. They've got their work friends, their coworkers that they see 5 days a week, and then suddenly retirement comes. The day they leave, they don't see that social structure anymore. What happens? What are the pitfalls for someone who's recently retired and they've lost that social circle at work?
Well, I think we all kind of dream of the day when we don't have to set that alarm clock and we don't have to be at work at a certain time and stay until a certain time. But after that newness wears off, then issues can set in. I think at that point, setting a structure to your day is so critical. So I think starting a new social structure is certainly critical. Getting involved in civic groups or worship services or whatever, bridge clubs, whatever might interest you is pretty critical. It's also, I think, important to not identify yourself with your former job entirely. You know, not to think, I was an accountant, I was a pilot, I was an attorney, but to think that was my identity, but now I'm a champion fisherman, or now I'm tutoring children in school, and develop new interests and a new identity. So retirement can be a double-edged sword. It can be just wonderful and freeing, but it also can have the component of loneliness, lack of structure, and a spiral into depression if it's not staved off.
And I presume it's up to the individual to work at building a social structure. In normal times, and of course we don't live in normal times right now, but in normal times, how do you go about building that social structure if you are a recent retiree, or, for example?
Mm-hmm. Well, in normal times, reaching out to neighbors, friends, family who maybe you just haven't had time to be with, joining civic organizations, doing something altruistic, traveling, anything to get yourself out of yourself. It takes some initiative, and that's not always easy when you're used to that routine being your routine, being fed to you, and you have to redesign your life. So it takes a little initiative. Sometimes people have self-initiative. Other times a spouse or a friend or a neighbor or an adult child may push you along and say, will you call someone and go play cards, or will you get out on Sunday and go to church? So it kind of depends on your level of self-initiative, but definitely you have to take the bull by the horns and start to restructure your life.
Well, now, of course, we don't live in normal times right now with the pandemic. So how do you maintain or build social connections when we're social distancing?
Mm-hmm. It's really tough. You know, I think when we first started social distancing and being safer at home, many people were a little intrigued by the novelty of that and felt like we had hit the pause button on life. And it was kind of nice. People started having family game nights and family dinners and time to do all kinds of things around the house that you always promised you would do. And then after a few weeks, that novelty kind of wore off. And people started having a little bit of urgency to talk to other people, to be with other people, to hug someone or shake their hands, and realizing that's just not a possibility in this day and age. So it's a tough call, but I think the fact that urgency emerged, that people wanted to be with other people, speaks to the fact that we really need socialization at every age. and not just socialization with the people living in our house within our four walls, but with other people. So that's where the electronic age certainly comes into play. It's a great time to be able to FaceTime with your grandchildren or FaceTime with old friends that you haven't spoken with in a long time, to do a book group by Zoom, to engage in your worship services through electronic media rather than attending in person where there's a health risk.
Is that as rewarding? I mean, normally this interview I would be doing with you face to face in our studio, but obviously I'm not doing it now. Is it as rewarding socially connecting that way?
Well, I can only speak personally to that, and I think no. It certainly is much more fun to be in person and maybe sit at lunch with friends and have a good spontaneous conversation, and cover whatever topics happen to come up. But other people may prefer the electronic or the media to be able to engage with others. But I think for the most part, people prefer to be in person and not just talk through media, but to talk in person and read body language and see other things that are going on that just aren't really available through electronic means.
Well, this pandemic will end one day. So once we get to the other side, give me your best advice on how to maintain a social structure as we age.
Well, I think a big part is if you've developed a social structure during the pandemic, keep that social structure. Continue to FaceTime and Zoom and stay in touch with old friends or whatever you have done to get through these isolating times. Because we have hit the pause button right now and we've had a little more time to reflect, I think I read something I thought was so good. It said, respect your body when it's asking you for a break. Respect your mind when it's seeking rest, and honor yourself when you need a moment. And I thought this set some pretty good parameters for how we can kind of re-up ourselves into a more normal society when that occurs. I heard an author speak recently, and she said something that I thought was so poignant for these times. She said that when you strike a match, you hit the head of the match on the rough part of the matchbook, and then light occurs. The match lights up. And I thought that certainly speaks to what we're going through. We're going through the rough time, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. We can't live in fear of dying. We need to live knowing we will live differently, but it will continue to get better.
Well said. Pat, thank you very much for being on The Best Times, talking about this important issue of socialization as we age.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
In the turbulent 60s, the civil rights movement brought about change. But sometimes the more things change, the more they stay the same. The woman you're about to meet has lived through many of those changes. As the first African American faculty member at Memphis State University, as a victim of racial prejudice, as a leader of the civil rights movement in Memphis, as an organizer of boycotts, sit-ins, and protests. And along the way, she found time to be an author, a wife, and mother. I'd like you to meet Miriam DaCosta Willis in her own words.
I was born in Florence, Alabama. We then moved to Charleston, South Carolina, which was my father's home. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where my mother was completing her master's in social work. Then we moved to Philadelphia while my father was completing his PhD. Then we moved to Alabama, then to South Carolina, and all over the place. My great-grandfather, who was born a slave, ended up acquiring a lot of property, sent his 12 children, all of them to college, 3 of them to graduate school in the North, 2 of them became college presidents. So I always heard that education was extremely important. That was the means of acquiring mobility, social mobility, economic mobility, etc. So, you know, education was always something that I aspired to, no matter what the struggle was. I was probably 8 or 9 when we went to Montgomery, and we had just moved from Philadelphia, where my father was working on his PhD. When we came back, we were going to Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. I was going with a couple of my friends, and I got on the bus and I just plunked down in the front seat. And they told me, "Come on to the back, come on to the back." And I said, "No, what? I'm gonna sit up here." And they said, "No, you can't sit up there. Colored people can't sit up there." So I just reluctantly went to the back. And then I got home, and really this was the first time that I was hit with segregation. And my mother explained to me that black people were supposed to sit in the back, and white people were supposed to sit in the front. And I thought that was crazy. What happened was the administration of the schools was not desegregated. We made a list of demands. We didn't hear from the school board. They just dismissed us. So we got together with the ministers, with the lawyers, etc., and we said, we're going to have to up the ante. We're going to empty these schools. We're going to have boycotts on Monday. I stayed home from my teaching job at Memphis State. We organized, and we had probably 60,000 students to leave schools. And we went on every Monday for about 5 Mondays. We got the school board's attention. I heard him speak at that first church service that we went to, and he had the common touch, but yet he was articulate. He was eloquent when he spoke. It was like he had ideals up here, but yet he could speak to the common people. I mean, he was a very unusual person. I was home, and our kitchen was in the front, and I was cooking dinner, and the television was on, and they announced that Dr. King had been shot. And it just took my breath away. It was just like the world had come to an end. I mean, it was just one thing after another, one assassination. Malcolm X was assassinated, and then King, and it was just like, you know, what next? What atrocity? While I was at Howard, I published my first book, Blacks in Hispanic Literature. And then when I moved back to Memphis, I organized the Memphis Black Writers Workshop. And the idea was that each of us would publish a book. Well, I ended up the only one publishing a book. My own books are probably about 9, and my book with others would total probably 14.
Are you working on one right now?
Yeah, I'm working on one. It's called Kith and Kin, and it's stories about my family. At age 82, I'm determined to keep on going because I feel like this is the best time. I've been to over 60 countries. You just do what you want to do. I've read books. My vision is not as good. My hearing is not as good, but I feel like this is my best time. I have tried to pass down to my children the values that I have been taught. First comes family, education, and giving back to the community. And I am determined to pass those things down to my descendants, my 4 children, my 7 grandchildren, and my 3 great-grandchildren, and all of the students whom I have taught.
Creative Aging's musicians may not be able to play live right now, but they're still making music. Here's an original song from the Double D Band. Enjoy.
When I was a kid, I didn't smoke. It made me cough, it made me choke. I didn't like those damn cigarettes. Daddy did and he had to have it. He couldn't quit cause he caught that habit. He put it down and light back up again. He said, I want to kick this habit, but right now I've gotta have it. And I know I shouldn't have started at all. I want to kick this habit, but right now I've gotta have it. And I know I shouldn't have started at all. High school years I loved a lot. On the team I was such a jock. I didn't like those damn cigarettes. My best friend smoked and he had to have it. He couldn't quit cause he caught that habit. He put it down and light back up again. He said, I one day I'm gonna kick this habit. Right now I've gotta have it. And I know I shouldn't have started at all. Habit, but right now I've gotta have it, and I know I shouldn't have started at all. You always give in whenever you crave, it takes you under. You can't break away, it's taking a hold. You gotta have it, and you can't let decided to buy a pack, I'd start a habit and give it back. I show the world it's an easy thing to do. A few months later, I had to have it. I couldn't quit cause I caught that habit. I put it down and light back up again. Now I say, one day I'm gonna kick this habit, but right now I've gotta have it. And I know I shouldn't have started at all. Ba 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 do ba 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 do That's it. I quit.
Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.